What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So, yes, it's a week before E3, and you know what that means? It means leaks. There are going to be leaks that take place. Games will leak out. We did get a big leak that appears to have been put up on Amazon UK and now confirmed through Kotaku, and that is Watch Dogs. This shouldn't really surprise you, as we've kind of talked about that here a bit before, but some of the ideas and mechanics behind it that have been described are pretty interesting. We're going to have to go over a bit of that, and then we also have to talk a bit about Fallout 76. I know it's crazy because Fallout 76, I thought we were pretty much done with it, but, well, Todd Howard keeps talking about it, and he's saying some things that is the big concern we have around games as a service. And then Dragon Quest got their own Pokemon Go version game. A lot to go over today, guys. As always, enjoy these videos. Make sure to like button. It does help out. We're going to start today with Shenmue 3 because it's actually been delayed roughly 3 months. It's August to November in this Kickstarter post that you're seeing here, where they talk about it going from August 27th to November 19th. They also give us, of course, the system requirements, which actually aren't too bad with a GTX 650 Ti, but they do require 100 gigabytes of space, so you still need quite a bit of free space there to play the game on PC. I'll be curious to see if it's the same on PlayStation 4. We'll see about that one, but yeah, a bit of a delay. They say it's to kind of just, I guess, what they're trying to do is refine it, as they're saying. What else they need to do, I don't know. I mean, maybe some of the animations could use some work before they have to announce they've gone gold and started printing discs. And I guess that's a bit better to get that initial work done rather than try to patch it in later like we see all these other games do that, right? I'd prefer them to just take a little bit extra time. The fans are ready. They'll wait a bit longer. They want this game to be as good as possible. And it's on Kickstarter, right? And they're being very transparent about it. So no one, I don't think, is really mad about it or anything. It's just, you gotta wait a couple more months. I'll be more curious, because now they're going to drop directly into the holiday season pretty much. I mean, November, we already know about some games coming out around then, so we'll see if they get hit by any competition around that time for people's wallets. There was also an interesting little bit about Call of Duty that I haven't really talked about yet, but it was pretty cool to see this. Again, though, not a lot of details, but apparently Call of Duty Modern Warfare, that's coming out, of course, in October, is going to have crossplay, and that shocked a lot of people, and we figured, oh, does that mean like Xbox and PC will play against each other? Is that PS4 and PC, right? Like, that's not Xbox and PS4, is it? Well, it sounds like it is. As you're seeing here, the Infinity Ward producer pretty much said you could play with anyone. In their words, everybody play with everybody, which they said everybody 3 times. Okay, so we're talking about systems here. PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC all playing against each other is pretty cool. I'll be curious if they have a way to turn that off in the options, like you just uncheck PC or you uncheck PlayStation 4, or you just uncheck crossplay, because the PC players will have a distinct advantage over players on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One who are using controllers. Keyboard and mouse, of course, is much more accurate than controllers with joysticks. So hopefully they have a way to turn that off for console players who don't want to deal with the keyboard and mouse and super high sensitivities and everything, because it won't be great for console players. But I'm very happy to see that a larger game like this is just having straight up crossplay. That'll help a lot when it comes to matchmaking, always having people to play with, essentially, right? We've seen that where they introduce DLC. They seem to have learned from that to where they wall off who can play with who. Now it seems like it's completely open, so good news there for Call of Duty fans. Oh, and real quick, we've talked a bit about PlayStation 5 backwards compatibility with PS4 games, and it was pretty cool to see Spider-Man with that ridiculously fast loading time, right? That's something a lot of us get kind of annoyed with, our load times, where you have to sit and wait for a long time in some instances. And it was really cool to see Spider-Man load in less than a second, and that things in the level would pop up and work very quickly rather than have what appeared to be just load times baked in, right? Where you can't fly through the city super fast or anything. Well, it looks like a patent was updated for backwards compatibility that seems to point to a lot of games being able to do this because it's going to be developed into the PlayStation 5 and its code and everything, and this is really cool to see. There's actually the patent as you're seeing here, and it describes it as this process may be repeated until the operating parameters are set optimally for the application on the new system. To further optimize, one can adjust the execution of the new hardware to see if the application can be run faster on the new hardware without causing it to fail. So they're essentially going to have it set up so that you can kind of plug your game in, you can play around with some of the settings and the parameters and make sure, hey, oh, this works, and now it loads in, in like a second or two. So great to see that. I really hope backwards compatibility, like straight out of the box, is easy, and for the most part works with all PlayStation 4 games as well as the discs and digitally, but that's gonna be the big question, and will it extend beyond PlayStation 4? I really hope so, but we'll see. Now guys, some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're gonna start with Watch Dogs right away. Amazon UK actually listed this by accident, essentially. Remember we talked yesterday about SKUs, or stock keeping units, at GameStop, where they listed over 20 Nintendo Switch games, then several PlayStation 4 and Xbox One games, getting ready for it. But remember, they kept it as essentially a placeholder title. You couldn't really tell what it was. Well, Amazon UK accidentally just outright posted it. It's called Watch Dogs Legion, and it's going to take place in the UK, and one of the parts of the description is very, very interesting. Now, Jason Schreier has gone on further to confirm this, and even talk a bit about how ambitious this system, this engine, everything's set up here. Think of like how that we had the Nemesis system before we had a while ago with Shadow of Mordor. Well, think about it this way, where we see it in Watch Dogs. But check this description out. This was actually posted up and then removed. Play as anyone. Every individual you meet in the open world has a full set of animations, voiceover, character traits, and visuals that are generated and guided by gameplay systems. This is very impressive if they can pull this thing off. I mean, think about it. You can go around, you can control anyone you want, it seems anyway, and according to Jason, they will actually affect the game as you play through it in terms of story, missions, and the way you're interacted with. So while we had something think of like Mario Odyssey, right? Where we're taking over enemies, but there were a set amount of enemies we could take over, and they were kind of set up for puzzles and different things you could play around in the world. To hear that you can go through, take over any NPC you want that you see around you, and that they can alter and actually change the story, possible branching paths. There's a lot here in this big open world that we could see, and according again to Jason Schreier, this is actually possibly caused a delay because of how ambitious this system is that they're looking to introduce. I mean, have some of these really cool things like we saw in Modern Warfare, brand new engine, right, going into next gen. Now we hear about Watch Dogs Legion getting this really ambitious system for interaction with NPCs and controlling them and running around. Also sounds really cool. This appears to be one of Ubisoft's big announcements, which we kind of figured that. Assassin's Creed is taking this year off. What do they go with instead of Assassin's Creed? Well, Watch Dogs. Now, Watch Dogs 2 was, I think, all right. I think it was pretty good. It took itself less seriously than the first one. And the first one, Ubisoft just messed up completely. They showed us a game that they didn't deliver. It was way downgraded compared to what they showed us. So hearing about a very ambitious system from Ubisoft in a series that we've kind of been tricked before does make me a bit concerned, a little tentative over this. I'm like, okay, we'll see. And then they'll show it to us and I'll still be like that. I'll be like, all right, we'll see it release. We'll see. But I'll be getting it because I do like the Watch Dogs series for what it is. And to hear about this take place in UK, open world, taking over NPCs, I'm curious how this is all going to work out and if that system really does deliver. Next up, let's touch on Google Stadia. I'm not a big fan of the streaming game thing. It's got a long way to go, but there is a Stadia event coming up, like I actually talked to you guys about, where Liam Robertson actually had the rumors set up and everything for it, and it is happening at the exact same time, actually, that we reported earlier a few days ago, and it is happening on Thursday. They put out this tweet here, Thursday, June 6th, it's 9 a.m. Pacific time, noon Eastern, and that's for exciting announcements, games, and more. It does appear that they're going to most likely reveal pricing as well. Basically, everything we need to know about Stadia to actually start using it. Games are the big ones. So you might not care about pricing, you might not care about any like release date or anything for the service, but I do think you want to at least check it out for the games. And I'm going to tell you why. The games, I believe, are also going to be on other platforms. I already told you guys about Baldur's Gate 3 that should be there. And that's also going to be on PC and eventually on console. So it's not just going to stay on Stadia. And I think there's going to be several games like that. I do also think there will be some exclusives. So be ready for that. I think there will be some that Google has signed and set up specifically for Stadia, but not all of them. So I think it's at least worth checking in on the stream or reading about it afterwards. But definitely check out some of the titles because it does sound like Stadia is going to have some ones that you might recognize from the past. So keep that in mind. You might see some weird stuff pop up and you wouldn't really be able to connect it to Google or Stadia or anything otherwise, them doing a presentation. But look forward to it a bit more than if it was just all about Stadia and not about any games, okay? Think about it that way. Look for the games, maybe not as much the streaming service, but hey, we'll also see if it's any good when it comes out. Again, after the Google outages and some of the other stuff, it's all streaming. We'll see. Next up, let's talk about Todd Howard and Fallout 76. You know what? I'm actually really curious about how they are going to approach E3. They'll probably tell jokes about themselves with Fallout 76 and all of that. The thing about Bethesda, at least, is they like to poke fun at themselves, and it should be pretty easy to poke fun at themselves at, E3. They could pretty much just show up and do like, knock, knock, who's there? Oh, Fallout 76. And that's like the punchline. Everyone will laugh. But it does look like we got a new interview from Todd Howard with IGN talking about Fallout 76 and kind of their thought process behind it, because it wasn't great when it launched. It's still not very good now, but it's not Anthem. So there you go. Isn't that crazy? Who would have thought they would have been able to say, well, at least we're not Anthem, But in the interview, what was really interesting about this is he says they kind of knew that when they launched it wasn't going to get high reviews. It's not a Metacritic score type game. It's not a game that's going to light up the scoreboards. But what's really a little worrying, to be honest, what he said here was it's not how it launches, it's what it will become. That's not great, because that is, I believe, the mentality for live service games. We've seen it with Anthem, right? We've seen it with Fallout 76. We've seen a host of live service games. And that is worrying that, yes, these companies really do view these things as, we'll launch it now and we'll fix it later, or we'll add more content later. We think that might be enough. And then you release it and the people beat it in 2 days, or they realize that the end game really doesn't have a lot to offer outside of doing the same thing over and over and over again. And it only takes them that long because you've turned down the multiplier for actually getting, or the odds, right, for getting different things, whether it's rare armor pieces or new abilities. And now that people are starting to catch on to that, I do think the regular games as a service with things like Anthem and Fallout 76 are exposed, essentially. And, well, he was straight up here when he said it, so it's not great when you see that happen and you see where gaming's kind of heading with these live services. So I don't know how long it'll be until Fallout 76 is what it'll become. I think it's gonna be a long time, if ever. I'm also curious if they ever make it free to play and move on from trying to charge people for it. I'm also curious if Anthem ever goes free to play, but it's a trend I hope goes away for the most part, to be honest. I just want to get back to buying a game and getting everything right there. I mean, we used to get, of course, games that were broken back on the GameCube, the PS2, and the original Xbox, but at least it was all there. And then those games it did release where everything was there and it worked great, it was awesome. And our last bit of news, let's talk about Dragon Quest Walk. I'm not kidding, that's what it's called, Dragon Quest Walk. It's a cell phone game and it feels very much like Pokemon Go. But I will say, when I saw some of the video for it that they showed off, Square Enix showed this off kind of in like a live stream that they showed and a trailer afterwards, it at least looks pretty fun. I actually kind of like it, the way it looks a bit more than Pokemon Go, because it looks like you're actually going out in the world and doing stuff. It has like the full RPG mechanics where you're actually controlling characters and fighting with them, and it looks like you're actually accomplishing things and leveling up in the game, as opposed to, I guess, Pokemon Go, where you're mostly capturing Pokemon over and over and over again. I know it's changed somewhat to where you're doing raids and gym battles that are like team-based and all this other stuff, but this looks like it actually has a lot of potential. Dragon Quest fans are already like super into the whole series, but to have this on your phone and it's free to play and it does use augmented reality. So right now it's launching in beta in Japan, and it showed them walking around and seeing like actual real like life locations and everything, which is really, really neat. And I like the look of it. I just hope that it eventually shows up stateside or everywhere else in the world, because I do know Dragon Quest can at times stick in Japan for a while. So I hope that it eventually gets out of there, because I'd like to get a bit more information and actually play the thing and give my thoughts on it, because Pokemon Go was really cool when that came out, but Dragon Quest is also very, very popular in Japan. So I think there is a massive upside for revenue here for Square if they can continue updating this and pull it off and kind of walk that line between monetizing your free-to-play games without making it feel like you're trying to take advantage of the consumer. Because Pokemon Go, when that came out, it didn't feel like you really needed to buy anything. I guess to hatch your eggs, you kind of felt like you had to, but it wasn't to the point where you felt like you couldn't progress without buying anything. So if they can kind of figure that out, Pokemon Go made a ton of money. And I think Dragon Quest can make a pretty substantial amount of money, at least in Japan, for what they're expecting there. The other thing was, it sounds like Dragon Quest 12 is basically having preparations made to start development. So, surprise, Dragon Quest 12, right? Yeah, not surprising there. Dragon Quest 11, I think, did well enough within expectations for them. And of course, it's still going to be launching Dragon Quest 11S when that comes out on the Switch, hopefully later this year. So, to hear about them now thinking about the future, Dragon Quest 12 is an exciting thing. I just hope Dragon Quest Walk does make the jump outside of Japan. I don't know if they'll ever come up with a better name for it. I guess they just ran out of time and they said, well, you're walking, so all right, Dragon Quest Walk. But pretty cool to see that. And again, Dragon Quest 12, we probably won't see for a couple of years if they're starting preparations to create it. Either way, though, good to hear that it's going into development. And let's finish up with our comment of the day from yesterday on Monday. This, as you're seeing here, is actually from Matt, saying the $200 SKU is likely going to be the most expensive edition of NBA 2K20. So yeah, there were pictures going around online about people taking pictures of little standees that had the Switch logo for NBA 2K20. Not surprising that would show up there, right? They spent the time developing and making it all work on the Switch. So yeah, they're going to do it yearly because why not? There's no other basketball game. NBA Live isn't there. And yeah, I know they like to sell these ridiculous special editions, and you know what, you might be right. That very well could just be NBA 2K20, the ripoff edition, where they jam all this virtual currency in there as well, and maybe give you something else with it too. Whoever bought the Legendary, or whatever it's called, edition, let me know what it was exactly down in the comments, because I'm sure it was stuff full of virtual currency that has no actual value when 2K20 comes out. Ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about, whether it's Watch Dogs Legion. Are you expecting more leaks to come out ahead of E3? I mean, we gotta get all the way to Sunday. I mean, EA's on Saturday. We gotta get all the way to Sunday before the leaks can stop technically, and we can get all the cool games and stuff put in front of us. But let me know anything about Watch Dogs Legion. Do you think they're a little bit ambitious with what they're trying to do? We might get another situation like we had back with the first one. Also, what about Dragon Quest Walk? Let me know about that. And then Todd Howard's comments on Fallout 76. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.